Hey, good morning to you. Welcome to another edition of Weather Academy. I'm meteorologist Tom DeVecchio. And the man, Tom, whenever I put in a double shift, Tom would say the hardest working man. But I've got to reverse the roles now here because I know when I pulled in today, I saw your car. And by the time I got to the weather office, you were gone. So
right.
You must have just
left. Well, we were working on Weather Academy.
Yes, he was working on the show here
Digging
today.
up these old pictures you see behind us.
Absolutely. So thank you, Bud. Working on certainly less than 6 or probably less than 5 hours sleep.
Could be.
So,
Could be. Who's counting? You know?
Well, that's right. But we're glad you're here because the historian in you definitely comes out at times like this. And as we're going to do, as we said last Friday, we're going through historical storms and historical weather events of the past. And yeah, last week we were in the 40s and 50s. Now we're moving into, we're kind of bypassing the 60s,
right.
For the most part.
For those of you who have stories or parents, families, and friends, there were some pretty good storms. I keep remembering 64.
Yes.
A lot of snow in 1963, 64. But we didn't have too many pictures of that. So
yeah, and that's the thing. And if you have pictures of storms that we didn't cover, I mean, there are a lot of, we try to cover the more memorable ones. If there's something there, I mean, we are a visual medium. So as much as I'm sure you'd love to hear us talk, we'd like to have some pictures to show with it.
Right.
You got pictures? Send them. This guy just loves to get those pictures on. So send them in, email them. At the end of our segment here, we'll show you what the email to send them in, and perhaps in a future show we can hit some of the big ones.
We can go anywhere. We've got a lot of good data, but as Tom said, when you got pictures, that really brings it home.
It really does. So today we're going into the late 70s. I know for me and probably for you, it was probably the first real major weather decade, because we were both mid-teens back then.
Right, we were alive.
We were alive. Yes, we were alive and well. Not quite able to drive, at least I wasn't.
Right.
But that was, we had memorable storm events.
We knew what was going on. And
we did.
Wherever you are, if you're the kids and you got parents, they can talk to you about it, or grandparents or whatever. Because whether it was here in northwestern Pennsylvania, and I lived out in the New York metropolitan area, the late 70s winters in the Northeast and Great Lakes set records.
Exactly. And they look just like this. Okay. Now, Tim, I'll let you explain this picture because you have kind of a connection to it.
Yeah, one of my students at Barron from many years ago sent this picture, and she is one of the two people in that Snowman. Now, this is back in the late 70s, and you had winters like 76, 77, 77, 78, and even 79.
79, yeah.
So 3 in a row. So this is one of those 3. She didn't tell me exactly which one, but you can see how much snow was piled up in relation to the buildings that those kids were, standing by.
Absolutely. And that may have been perhaps this one. And this is the big Great Lakes blizzard. January 24th, January 27th. The date is cut off. That's 77.
78, actually.
Or 78, I'm sorry.
That's
78.
1978. And that's an old-fashioned weather map. And Craig and Tom have talked to you about weather maps before. Whenever you got all those black lines, isobars, tightly wrapped around an L in the middle, you got a huge low-pressure area and a huge storm that generated a lot of lake-effect snow, blizzard conditions, and cold temperatures here in northwest Pennsylvania at the end of January.
It did, and the picture says it all. You don't need much of an imagination there. That low right over that particular low at this particular time that the map was made. Maps were usually made back then every 3 hours, I believe.
Yeah, this would be a 7 in the morning map, probably.
Yeah, those are the ones that we can usually access. And that low is right over just to the northwest of Lake Erie. Around Detroit is where that low is located. And we definitely got hammered with that. And it also, that January 9th, going back now just a month earlier, another huge storm.
Right.
January 9th, we had our lowest barometric pressure. Now, typically we measure pressure in millibars from a meteorological standpoint, but we also can measure it in what we call inches of mercury. kind of looks somewhat like a thermometer, but
Right.
much different physics there. The average global barometric pressure is about 29.92 inches.
Right.
A significant change would be, say, 1/10, maybe 2/10 of an inches in 6 hours. That would be considered a real good change. When you are almost 1 inch difference, that is significant. 28.66 inches. I remember at the time we actually had, because I was here in Erie, and we had a
Right.
story. Bob Sandstrom
From the National Weather
from the
Service.
Weather Service. They interviewed him, and he showed, we also measured the barometric pressure by what's called a barograph, which is basically, it shows the graphs and it shows the tendency. They had to recalibrate it because it was only calibrated to go down to 29 inches.
Okay.
So they had to recalibrate it so that they could get the, something that he said he has never done, and I don't think they've ever done since. I don't think the pressure's ever been below 29 inches
Right.
since that big storm.
So that's Erie's lowest barometric pressure. Now we're just skipping around here with fun facts of the late 70s, and Tom can tell you more about what it was like to live through that 77, 78 winter. And that's what that map was about, and that's what that low pressure area or record low pressure that we just talked about was about. But talk about that snowfall that stood for, decades.
Oh, it did. The 77, 78 winter, almost 143 inches. And that really, it was the gold standard locally here. We never had really anything close to that amount up until we hit the 2000s when we had almost 150 inches, if memory serves.
I
like
believe so.
149 and maybe some change there. What that winter, you can come back to us, Cindy, what that winter time, what that particular winter did for the Erie region, and I know you and I kind of chat about this, personally. What it did, it basically changed the way PennDOT did their snow plowing. Up until after that winter, PennDOT, if memory serves, they almost doubled their fleet.
Okay.
Because we had, the city was closed down.
Right.
I remember taking the city bus home, and we'll have another graphic showing you why in just a second here. We tried to go up the hill on Powell Avenue, and it wasn't going.
Right.
I had to get out, and we were about 2 miles from home on a very frigid day, and we had to walk home because it just wasn't able to make it.
Make the grade.
Yeah.
If you think, some of you are watching from the county, in which the snow amounts would be even higher for that
they
winter.
were larger.
Maybe in places like Edinburgh or Waterford, you had snowfall amounts more like 250 inches for the season.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was an incredibly snowy winter. And remember back then, you didn't have your four-wheel drives. People didn't have the get up and go in their vehicles.
No, they didn't.
And you got stuck. And, and like Tom said, now just imagine if your school bus couldn't go any further and you had to walk 2 miles.
2 miles.
2 miles home in frigid temperatures.
Yeah, wind chills were below zero at the time, and it was. I remember walking. I went to prep, and just walking downtown to the bus stop. That 4 to 5 blocks was brutal with all the wind tunnel effects of State Street going downtown. And as Tom mentioned, some very, very cold temperatures. Let's go full screen again here, Cindy. We had the coldest area. Some of our record lows would still stand today. The coldest area until 1994, February 11th, 1979, 17 degrees.
Yeah.
Below zero. That was the record. That was the all-time record until 1994, which I don't know. Perhaps we can hit that in a future one, but
we'll go into
maybe we can hit 94. So we'll just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah.
As far as because 94 we set other records here, but going back to 77, one of the reasons that we had so much lake effect snow. And you can check out the temperatures here, T.
Yeah, I remember, for those of you that might have a history class, President Jimmy Carter was inaugurated in January 1977 as President of the United States. And I believe his first act, one of his first acts, was to close schools in the Northeast to save energy and the cost of heating. And this is the coldest month, I believe, on record in Erie. The average temperature,
it still is, yeah.
in January of 1997 was 12.5 degrees. So that was in the winter of 76, 77, and I believe that's the one where two gentlemen walked across Lake Erie.
Across Lake Erie.
It had frozen so solid, they walked on the ice-covered lake from the U.S. to Canada, probably in that month.
Very well, very well. And again, just to reiterate, that was the average temperature, okay? That's highs and lows. So that, 12.5 degrees. I don't think there's any month that has, it's such an anomaly. I can't think of another month that was
the only one I
cold.
think that came close was 5 years ago, February of 2015. It was around 13 or something. And that was a brutally cold
That
month.
was brutally cold. I believe, if I recall, we were below zero in Erie like 8, maybe
10 times.
10 times.
Yeah,
10
yeah.
times.
If you want to do some research, just 5 years ago, many of you might have remembered that. February of 2015, there was 10 times that even Erie went below zero. And we were doing those little science experiments, taking a hot pail of water, throwing it up in the air, or blowing bubbles and watching them just settle on the snowpack.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're going to go to February of 78, and this one I'll let you take, T, because this is your neck of the woods.
Right. And so a couple of weeks later, after that big blizzard out here, I was in northern New Jersey, just outside of New York City, and what you can see there was the snowfall from what we call the Great Blizzard of February 78 in the Northeast. And I remember measuring at my house 18 inches of snow.
Okay.
And that's in the light blue there, the 10 to 20. But there were areas like in the Poconos, which is northeast Pennsylvania, where you see the blue and the red dot, that had 20 to 30 or 30 plus, as well as Rhode Island and up into eastern Massachusetts. And I got 2 days in a row off of school.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. It was a Monday and Tuesday, so it was perfect. The storm came in on a Sunday night, and Monday and Tuesday, everything just got shut down.
Long weekend, baby.
Yeah, it was fun. And now this is back here closer to home. Yeah.
Are you familiar with this picture as to who
No,
it is?
I'm not. Somebody sent this to me, and you can see, again, this is 1977, and someone had made, right around here, a very huge snowman.
Look at that. You figure that person's probably about 4 feet tall, that girl?
You would think, and then you got the porch there, and it's going above a porch into the second level.
So you got
like 12 feet.
12 to 15 feet of snowman there. And of course, snowman likes the cold air. Snowmen like 12.5 degree average temperatures.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now we're going to move ahead here to December of 1983. What makes this particular month specific was, our gold standard now is Christmas of 2017, of course, but the old gold standard was December of 1983. Incredibly cold outbreak, and we had some, I believe, 20.
I got some notes.
Okay, Tom's going to get some notes there. I know we had over 20 inches of snow during that particular Christmas of 1983. And again, unfortunately, we don't have a ton of graphics with this particular one. What strikes me at the time, I was living along the lakeshore in Fairview Township, and it was the first Christmas that we couldn't make it up the hill to get to Route 5 to go to church, because not only did we have 20 inches of snow, the temperature we usually do the Christmas Eve Mass, the temperature fell below zero right after sunset, and we couldn't make it up. We had a big, like, Plymouth Fury, those
one
things
of those
were
big old
tanks.
wide cars.
Tanks, and boy, that, we just spun our wheels because it was such an incredibly, it was a bomb, definitely a bomb. And this one was more of a lakeshore event. There was a southwest wind, So this is one where Erie got the most of.
And you talked about record lows. I think there was 3 record lows in a row, all below 0, like December 25th, Christmas Day, December 26th,
Correct.
and December 27th. Now, when you talk about wind chill factors, the wind chill factor chart that they used back then was a little more harsh. So when we say there were wind chill factors, 40 to 60 below 0, on today's chart, it would still be well below 0, but not that low. But regardless, I mean, you were just talking about below 0 lows and very strong winds and, frostbite occurring in minutes.
Absolutely. And again, a lot of people at the time, the churches were empty because nobody could make it. Another time, January of 1985, this was January 21st.
Right, the 20th to the 21st is what the note said on that one.
Yes, the Super Bowl, because this is when it was the Niners in Miami. I'm a Niners fan, so I didn't care what the weather was.
Exactly.
I had to show, that's Joe Montana there putting his arms up in victory there in the upper left-hand corner. But we had some, again, it was Christmas of '83, round 2.
Right.
For the most part.
At least 15 inches of snow, according to the notes, and more, wind chill factors way below 0 and blizzard conditions. Absolutely.
And, I didn't scan that too well, but we had, very high snow bursts. And another thing, again, a more personal note, you see on the left there, the people in the street, those who, especially those in the homeless, really get affected by these cold temperatures. Today we have a little better system of warming shelters, but back in the 70s and 80s they weren't quite as prominent, and a lot of people were badly hurt and affected by that. So socially, it's good to see that we have a little better system there. And what's worse than a college student who was, getting ready, because at the time, most of the colleges are on terms and not semesters.
Okay.
So they were back in school. School was on Sunday. Now, they didn't close the schools at the time. And this guy here in his Gremlin, the front tire literally broke on the right side there. So his tires broke, and needless to say, he wasn't a happy man.
Gremlin is the name of a car.
Yes.
Just for those of you.
I'm sorry, I should have.
Just so you know.
My bad, yeah.
That was one of the cars. And again, back then, not 4-wheel drive, they used something called chains.
Yes.
Some people would put literal chains that wrapped around your tire to give traction, especially on ice and slippery surfaces. But they were all, rear-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people would actually put sandbags and kitty litter in the trunk to weigh down the back end of the car where the power was. So
to get them moving.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, it also raised the front of the car, so braking got to be a problem.
Right.
Because you had less weight on that. So it was kind of a mixed blessing with that. So, hard to believe, T. We've been talking almost 20 minutes already about some of the storms.
Right.
And so we will end it here. And again, as Craig says, he likes to say, what inspires you? Tom and I were inspired at very young ages to become meteorologists, as was Craig, for that matter. So you're never too young. Kids, if you're watching, never too young to kind of figure out what you want to do.
And really, a lot of these storms that we just showed you, Tom and I had pretty much already decided that's what we wanted to do. Now, in the 70s, we were in high school in the mid to late 70s, and our interest in weather started almost around, what, 1970, 1960?
1970-ish, yeah.
So we had been inspired, and these big snowstorms back then really just spurred our enthusiasm for weather.
Absolutely. So, and that's what it was. For me, it was a big tornado outbreak in 1970. It wasn't even in Erie, it was in the Midwest, and I read about it, and that's what got me going. I was 8 years old, and the rest is history, as they say.
Exactly, 8 years old for me as well.
So, hey, Tom, thank you so much again
Good to be here.
for being here on, for you, a very early Friday morning here. We appreciate that. And Tom, you'll be here next week. And
Yeah, we'll do more winter storms.
We'll do more winter storms. And Craig, though, and I will be back on Monday with more weather information. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Moms, happy Mother's Day to you.
That's right.
For all the moms there coming up this weekend.
And it'll be better than the weather on Saturday.
Yes, it will.
We've got a little problem late tonight and Saturday.
We do. A real hit of wintertime. In fact, we may, we won't set a record because the record for the latest measurable snow, that is snow of at least 1/10 of an inch, is May 10th.
Right.
Which is Mother's Day, which is Sunday, Mother's Day. Now, we're not going to see that, but May 9th, we had a 1/2 inch of snow back in 1923, and if we manage to get measurable snow, we get pretty close to the record, along with one of the coldest May 9ths on record as well.
Right, and that's all tomorrow, so moms, take heart.
Take heart.
We'll say
we'll
it's
break 50.
less harsh.
We'll break 50 on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
We'll try to. No 70,
With some
we'll break
sunshine.
50.
Yep.
All right, thank you so much. Have yourselves a great weekend.
Take care, everybody.